The 1930s, a swinging period with big band jazz clubs, heroes, dames, good always winning. Hold on a minute. Wait, you're saying that's just in the movies? Crippling economic conditions, gender and racial inequality, rise of fascism? That sounds like today. Well, at least the cameras were cooler. Hey there friends, welcome back to the channel. My name's Alex Laux, and if you've been following my photography, you know I have a love-hate relationship with folders. And that's mainly because the three examples that I have are all guest-focused cameras. So recently I picked up one that has a coupled rangefinder, and that has been a huge game changer. So today I'm going to review the Zeiss Ikon Super-Ikonta 531/2. And as always, let's go back to the studio and I'll give you a background of the camera's history, show you around the camera, and give you a taste of its functionality, and I will meet you back here. Originally founded in 1846, Carl Zeiss, along with Ernst Abbe and Otto Schott, formed the historic company that we know today as Carl Zeiss AG. While mainly known for their optics, their location in Germany put them at the center of the photographic industry of the 19th and early 20th centuries. Zeiss Ikon, the camera manufacturing branch of Carl Zeiss, was founded in 1926 by combining Contessa Natel, Ernmann, Gors, and ICA. The group operated factories in Jena, Stuttgart, Dresden, Berlin, and Oberkirchen. While many of the constituent firms continued to produce their own cameras for a short period, having so much talent available to them, Zeiss Ikon began to design their own cameras. In 1929, they began manufacturing and marketing a series of self-erecting folding medium format cameras known as the Ikonta. These were available in 4 different models: the 520A, the 520-16B, and the 520-2C. There was a D model as well, but it used 616 or 116 format film. A, B, and C used the standard 120 film that we know today. It's the C model that we really want to focus on. That, the 520-2, it produced images in the 6:9 format and is a direct line to the 531-2. So the one problem with these cameras is that they lacked an integral rangefinder. That was fixed in 1933 with the release of the Super-Ikonta 530-2. Like the Ikonta, it produced 8 6:9 images on 120 film, and it also included a mask to mask it down to half frame, or 6x4.5 centimeters. It was available with 4 different lenses, all of them Zeiss, a Zeiss Tri-Otar, f4.5, and 3 Tessars rated at f4.5, 3.8, and 3.5. Production of the Super-Ikonta 530-2 continued until 1939. However, in 1936, the Super-Ikonta 531-2 was released, the camera that we have here today. And again, like the previous model, it was available in either 6x9, 8 frames, or you could mask it down to half frames, 6x4.5. 4 lenses were available for it: the Novar-Anastigmat f3.5 and 3 Tessars rated at f4.5, 3.8, and 3.5. Of course, we all know what happened in 1939. World War II erupted. Now, Zeiss, being an optical manufacturer, was critical to Nazi Germany's war effort, and as such, they made use of forced labor. This included members of the Jewish community and other minorities being persecuted under the Nazi regime. Sadly, I don't have any record on how Zeiss treated their forced labor group directly, but it bears mentioning all the same. After the war, Zeiss itself found itself divided between American and Soviet zones of control. The Soviets would take the designs of the Super-Ikonta and end up turning it into the Moskva II, a similar 6x9 folding rangefinder camera. Zeiss itself continued to produce new versions of the Super-Ikonta 531-2, but a much simpler availability, with the lower tier models using a Schneider Xenar 105mm f3.5 or a Zeiss Tessar 105mm f3.5. Production of the 531-2 ended in 1952, but the Super-Ikonta line continued in the 6x6 version until 1959, with the final model being the Super-Ikonta 4. All right, that's the background. Let's take a closer look at this beauty. And here it is. This is the beautiful Zeiss Ikon C531-2. It's a bit of a mouthful, but it is a bit of a handful of a camera. You can see exactly how big this beast is. And despite its size, it's a fairly simple camera to show you around. Of course, at the front you have that big, beautiful front element of that Novar-Anastigmat f3.5 10.5 centimeter lens, or 105mm in modern parlance. You have your contour shutter, which makes it super easy to get repaired, and you have your apertures ranging from f3.5 all the way up to f32. You'll also notice this red dot here. That is, you can set it and just focus your lens to match up, and you don't have to worry about focusing. It'll put it nicely in that sweet spot that you don't have to worry about it. Speaking of focus, this is your focusing knob, and this is your rangefinder magnifier. And your shutter cocking lever here, and you have your shutter speeds arranged around the outside from bulb 1 second to 1/250th of a second, and there's a red mark right up there that indicates where the shutter speed is set to. That's about it for the front dial. You got a lever here to adjust your aperture and your shutter cocking lever. Up at the top here, we have our film advance and the safety release window. So if it's red, that means you're good to actually go ahead and expose the frame. You have your shutter release, and you have a fairly simple viewfinder here. It's a peep finder. It does help a lot with your composition, although you do have to watch out for that parallax error. And this tiny window right here is for your rangefinder. Right here, you have a shutter for your red window for film advance, because again, the red window does work, but if you are out in the sun, it is advisable that you keep that closed unless you're actually advancing the film. On the bottom, you have a tripod socket, and these two posts here are for your film spools. And of course, this little brass name plaque is from the original manufacturer. Also at the top, I should note, here's your front bed release, and on the sides, you have your back lock. Now, this camera originally had a leather strap, hand strap here, but again, as you can see, I find it was getting really brittle, so I cut it off and just replaced it with modern peak design. That's about it for the camera. So let me reset the view, and I'll show you how to get this thing up and running and exactly how to use it. All right, so normally if you are first pulling out this camera, it is already closed. Now the nice thing is because these cameras are self-erecting, you just have to release the lock and the camera will snap the bellows and the bed and the front lens element. And you achieve that by pressing the button here. And boom. And in this case, it's getting a little old, so I really have to give it a hand, but there you go. Everything is in the right position and your viewfinder window snaps open. If not, you can just use the notch here and pull it open. Now, the next important step is, of course, you need to flip this magnifier out, or your rangefinder simply won't be able to give you the correct response and focus. And like I mentioned previously, here is your focusing knob, and that allows you to get the focus in correctly. And there's this little tiny arrow that indicates where your focusing is. Now, the nice thing is that this can go from infinity down to 5 feet. So it works okay as a portrait lens, but really this is designed for landscape, urbanscape, travel snapshots, etc. Setting the shutter speed, there is no built-in meter, nor is there a hot shoe, so you do need to have an external meter for this. One thing to note, because this is a pre-war model, your shutter speeds are a little different from what you're used to. So again, you have your standards, you have your 1 second, half a second. Instead of a quarter second, you have a fifth of a second. Instead of a 1/15th of a second, you have 1/10. 1/25 instead of 1/30th, 1/50th instead of 1/60th, 1/100th instead of 1/125, and of course you top out at 1/250th. But thankfully, you can use fast films. I've shot up to 400 speed in here because you do have those apertures beyond f/16. So if you are going with Sunny 16, easy to adjust for that, that 1/250th top out. Focusing, again, is achieved, and if you don't want to use a rangefinder or your rangefinder doesn't have enough contrast, you can easily set your focus to match that red dot here, and simply set your aperture to f11, and that sort of coordinates that nice little sweet spot. Of course, the rangefinder window is found here, so the idea is you really want to get down to that dance. You want to figure out the best way to use the camera. I find it best to compose, focus, meter, set, cock the shutter, fire. And then once you fire, you'll notice here that this red dot has disappeared. This means that the camera itself, no matter if you've cocked it, won't actually fire. You need to actually physically advance the film until that red dot indicates that you're safe to go. The idea is you want to prevent double exposures. And that's about it. To close it up, you simply close up your viewfinder, and then you press it here and here to release the lock, and then close it up, and it folds up nicely. Okay, let's get this thing loaded up with film. Okay, so I am again in downtown Oakville, and I got 2 rolls of Kodak Tri-X 400, which I will be shooting at box speed and then developing in 510 Pyro at the 1:100 dilution. So time's a wasting, let's get walking. Using the Super-Ikonta is a bit of a dance, so if you're used to working with cameras of a similar age, style, or even a large format camera, you can pick up working with the camera easily. Loading film is best done with the camera in the closed position, as the back can take a bit of force to open, but there is little chance of getting a dreaded fat roll. There's no built-in meter or even an accessory shoe on the camera, so you'll need to use either a handheld meter or simply go with the Sunny 16 method. When working with the camera, I like to check the composition first, then focus, meter, and then set the exposure. Then I'll cock the shutter and take the photo. The camera has the anti-double exposure lock on it, so you must advance the film before taking the next shot and ensure that the red dot is visible in the indicator window. The one thing is that it just feels off balance, so you really need to be steady. I haven't yet found the right grip to hold the camera and take the shot while keeping that front section balanced. At least when the camera is folded up, it takes up almost no room in the camera bag and can easily add that big 6x9 negative to any travel kit.
But the true power of any camera isn't with the camera itself, especially cameras of this age. It is the optics. And you would think that a camera made by Zeiss Ikon would have Carl Zeiss optics. But the truth of the matter is, it's a lot more complicated than that. All right, let's talk optics while I shoot the second roll.
Well, most people will want to get their Super-Ikonta equipped with the Zeiss Tessar lens, and who can blame them? But for the most bang for your buck, take a look at the Novar-Anastigmat lens. These lenses were built under contract for Zeiss by Rodenstock, another reputable optical maker. It's a triplet design and can produce amazing images and even some special out of focus rendering. You also get a decently fast lens for your 6x9 camera at f3.5, and being able to stop down to f32 gives you a wide depth of field. The 10.5cm or 105mm focal length will give you an equivalent of 40mm in the 35mm format. So not too narrow, but not too wide either. Plus, these lenses are still sharp. I've worked with a ton of triplets in the past, and despite having only 3 elements instead of 4 on the Tessar, you still get an excellent optical quality out of them.
And there we have it, the Zeiss Ikon Super-Ikonta 531-2. A big name for a fun camera, but also an expensive camera. These are premium folders, so they'll have a premium price tag attached to them. The models that have the Novar-Anastigmat glass, they'll run you about $550. But if you're looking for one with that Zeiss Tessar glass, budget at least between $1,500 and $2,000 Canadian on the used market. And like any camera of this age, you really need to keep it in good shape. And that might mean doing a bit of a clean lube adjust on it. Getting those shutter speeds back up to spec. I know that these are a little bit slow, but they're not that bad yet. And thankfully the shutters themselves are fairly simple, and someone with enough know-how might even be able to service them yourself. Another thing you need to watch out for, like any folding cameras, is watch out for these bellows. They often can develop pinholing. Now, pinholing can be easily fixed with a bit of liquid electrical tape or electrical tape, but if they're completely gone, you might need to spend the money and get a donor camera, especially one that isn't working. I like this. I'm not going to be getting rid of this camera anytime soon. It's a nice little piece of kit. It's compact, it fits in my camera bag and gives me this beautiful 6x9 negative in a compact, easy to use package. And it just looks sweet, especially if you're doing war photography impression. Getting a pre-war one is actually really nice. And what makes this one even more special is that I can actually trace it to where it was originally purchased in Edinburgh in Scotland. So that's a really cool piece of history to attach to this camera. As always, let me know in the comments below, what folders have you used before? Do you prefer rangefinders, or do you go up to a modern Fuji folding camera? If you're new to the channel, please consider subscribing and hitting that bell notification icon to get new content. I release contents every other Tuesday, 2 to 3 times a month, so videos do come out on the regular. And if you've liked this video, give me a thumbs up. Until next time, my name's Alex Laux. Get out there, stay safe, know when to fold them.